It's MED Monday! Today, learn to adjust, because the poker times, they are a-changin'.
Was a loser, now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changin'.
Everybody studies on Monday! So welcome to the 27th Minimum Effective Dose Monday episode. Today's article came, just like last week's article, I did a little bit of Google searching for 2-bet calling, opening ranges, 2-betting ranges, preflop ranges, all that kind of stuff. And I came across this article on a site that I'd never heard of before. The site's called gamblingsites.com. And if you go there, it has just a lot of articles and information about just gambling in general, horse racing and craps and that kind of stuff, you know. I'm, of course, concerned with the poker stuff. Forget all that other junk, just the poker stuff. This article that I found is called Poker Strategy: How Opening Ranges Have Evolved and How to Adjust. And it was written by Jason Lee, and it was published about a year ago on August 21st, 2017. Now, I picked this for today's article because it just goes right in line with the last 3 or 4 episodes that we've been talking about on the regular podcast and in the MED Monday episodes, all about opening ranges, right? 2-betting and 2-bet calling and stuff. And this article just dovetails perfectly with all that kind of stuff. It's not exactly giving you strategies to open or to call 2-bets better, but giving you strategies to adjust to how poker times change. You know, we're doing all this work on 2-betting and calling ranges, and 1 year from now, not that everything is going to be a complete 180-degree difference, but things will change so much that we need to be ready for those changes before they come, and we need to learn how to adjust to them. So I'm going to read the article for you right now, and then I'm going to give you the minimum effective dose idea. Now, this is the critical concept to take away and apply to your poker game and to your studies. And the second thing I'll give you is the minimum effective dose action, and that is the one thing that you can do this week to boost your poker to the next level. Alrighty, let's get to the article and some words of wisdom from Jason Lee. Gambate!
Alright, everyone, listen up! When Eltrusius, maiden of the clouds, blows the battle horn, let the battle begin!
I am Eltrusius!
Eltrusius, the juiciest.
That means you can start.
Poker Strategy: How Opening Ranges Have Evolved and How to Adjust. If you've ever gotten your hands on any poker book from the last 20 years, the first section is almost always dedicated to preflop opening hand ranges. Sometimes they'll give you a chart and tell you exactly what to play from where, and sometimes they will loosely tell you how to decide what to play. While the basics and hard rules these books preach are mostly correct, there are a lot of nuances that need to be taken into account. These nuances are a result of the way the game has evolved over the past few years and things these books have left out. People have come up with ways to exploit the hard and fast rules, and if you don't adapt to them, you're going to get left behind in the dust. I want to take a few minutes today and run through some of these basics, and more importantly, how they have evolved and what you need to do to evolve with them. The emphasis is not going to be on the basics, but more on the adaptations that have taken place and the nuances I feel are important. Why are preflop hand ranges so important? There's a reason that every book covers these first. Yes, it makes logical sense that they are the first thing that happens in a hand. Teaching postflop before preflop seems silly. But I think they're there because they are much more important. Preflop hand selection is the framework for your entire game. A mistake here can negate anything you do right for the rest of the hand. Imagine if you're a skydiver and you're going for a jump. You load up on the plane like a boss, hook up to the line like you're supposed to, jump with absolute precision from the perfect altitude, but then you crash into the ground because you didn't pick a good chute to use. Sorry for the morbid example, but the idea is the same. If you don't make the right decisions from the very beginning, everything after that can be perfect and still be pointless. If you're playing a hand that you shouldn't be, you may have already set yourself up for failure. Anytime I'm coaching a player, I always make sure that they have a firm grasp on their preflop ranges and are also well aware of how to adjust them to changing circumstances. Under the gun is not the same anymore. Several years ago, if someone raised from under the gun, then you automatically assumed and knew they had a big hand, due to the fact that they had every single player to act still behind them and they would probably be out of position for the rest of the hand. This made a lot of logical sense. However, smart players found a way to exploit this. They began raising with marginal hands from under the gun because they knew it would get them a lot more respect. they knew the other players would assume they had much better hands than they actually did, and they could push the table around a bit more. Obviously, this would only work for so long, until the players at the table would realize you were opening with lighter holdings from under the gun. After that, though, it assured that you would get paid off more with your big hands from under the gun because players no longer just assumed you had a monster. This means when you did have a monster hand, it didn't get the respect it earned. This balancing of your range would make you much more difficult to play against. Adjustments. Armed with this knowledge, you need to be prepared to make adjustments in the way you play, and also in the way you react to your opponent's play from under the gun. First, you need to pay more attention to what players are opening with from under the gun. This means watching when you aren't involved in the hand and see what they show down. If you see them open a marginal hand from under the gun, you can assume they're going to be doing it again. The phrase "under the gun is the new button" could not be truer. The button has always been a place where everyone opens almost anything. Now, under the gun is a spot where people are starting to open their full range at times because they think they can get away with it. Pay attention to what people are opening and adjust your game accordingly. Don't just give them massive respect and make huge folds every time. Do remember though, even though they open light from under the gun, they can still have big hands from there as well. In your own game, you may want to consider opening up your under the gun range. Here's the most important part to remember. Only do this if you're very comfortable getting away from hands when you need to. If you struggle to fold top pair, or even occasionally make some bigger folds, you're going to get yourself in trouble doing this from under the gun. If you open up 8-7 suited from under the gun and can't ever fold on an 8-4 deuce flop, you don't need to be opening up your under the gun range. Stay snug and play a little closer to ABC poker. A lot of this will be dependent on the skill levels and stickiness of your table. Suited connectors are everywhere! One of the biggest evolutions of the game of poker in the past decade has been the growing obsession with suited connectors. People will tell you that they are just as excited to get Jack-10 suited as they are to get pocket aces. There are definitely some pros and cons to having these be more prevalent in your preflop opening ranges. The pros are that they balance your range out and make it harder for your opponents to know what you have. If you only play big pairs and big Broadway cards, it's easy to figure out what you have, and you probably won't get much action on your hands. If you happen to play suited connectors as well, though, it becomes much more challenging to know what you have. For example, let's say you only play big pairs and big Broadway cards. If the flop comes King, Queen, 10 and you bet, I'm going to fold against you almost every time unless I have something good because I know this is all over your range. You'll struggle to get paid on your hands. But if I know that you also play suited connectors at times, I might be less likely to fold to you on this board because I don't know with certainty that you actually have anything. You also have the ability to snap off big hands and win huge pots as well. Big pocket pairs are going to lose a lot of money to you when you have 8-7 suited on a board like 8-7 deuce. This is definitely one of the biggest pros. The cons, though, are these hands are much more challenging to play, and you're going to be in a lot of tough spots. People also have the tendency to bleed away too many chips with these hands just trying to hit a flop. I would say for the most part that they do more harm than good in a lot of people's games. Most people are unaware of it because they usually just lose small to medium-sized pots with them. For example, let's say you have that 8-7 suited against a big pocket pair again, and instead of the flop coming 8-7 deuce, it now comes 8-3 deuce. Now you're in a world of hurt, but you still feel pretty good with top pair. This is a recipe to lose a lot of chips if you aren't good enough to get away from stuff post-flop. I will tell you this, 100% of the people I coach and ask if they have problems getting away from suited connectors will tell me no. I can assure you that almost all of them were lying and didn't even know it. Adjustments. It's a bit challenging to give blanket adjustments here as they're so situationally dependent. But I'm going to do my best. Just realize that these are not catch-alls and sometimes they are not applicable to certain situations. First, be careful that you aren't opening with these too much. There's a big difference between 6-5 suited and Jack-10 suited. They're great to be mixed into your range to mix things up, but make sure that they don't become the basis of your range. Also, remember that Jack-10 suited is better than Jack-9 suited. 9-8 suited is better than 9-7 suited, and so on. The bottom line is to make sure that you aren't letting suited connectors take control of your range and get you into trouble. Next, be aware of your position with these. If the cutoff opens and you're defending in the small blind all the time with suited connectors, you're going to be putting a lot of money in and being out of position in a heads-up pot. This isn't the best recipe for making money, especially with a hand that often needs to hit in order to win the pot. I'm much more of a fan with defending these heads up in the big blind than the small blind for that reason. I also like calling with them when I'm in position, as long as I don't have someone who likes to squeeze a lot behind me. Multi-way pots are also way more profitable to use suited connectors in, as when you hit your dream flop, you have more customers that will be willing to pay you off. In a heads-up pot, it's much more likely that if the flop misses your opponent, the most you will get out of them is maybe a continuation bet.
Oh, man. That was totally wicked!
Alrighty, I felt that there was a really good article, kind of a good primer to get you started thinking about how your opponents are often changing their game. A lot more aggression from earlier positions, a lot more suited connectors. People play those suited connectors and gappers all the time, and it gives you some ideas on how you can adjust your game to their adjusting ranges. Alrighty, so let's get to the MED idea. Here it is. Pre-flop hand selection is the framework for your entire game. You can set yourself up for failure or success with the starting hand choices you make. And here's the MED action. Look at the profitability of suited connectors in your poker database. Filter for them one by one, starting with ace-king suited. Look at their profitability by position, when you're open raising, when you're calling the 2-bet, and when you're 3-betting. Review the 3 biggest losing hands from each of these suited connectors. What mistakes are you making? Are they pre-flop mistakes, like it was a bad spot and you should have folded pre-flop? Or are they post-flop mistakes and you're playing your draws too passively or maybe too aggressively? Or maybe you can just never fold those top pair or even weaker 2-pair hands. Thank you so much for listening today, and of course, thank you very much to Jason Lee and GamblingSites.com for that article. If you go to the show notes page for this, it's smartpokerstudy.com/MED Monday. You can find a link right there to take you to the article. And if you do visit the site, take a look up in the top right-hand corner. There's a little drop-down menu that says Other Categories. Click on that, then click on Poker, and then they're still publishing articles up there. So check it out. You can listen to this and every other MED Monday episode, just like I said, by visiting smartpokerstudy.com/MED Monday. Please send me those questions via email, sky@smartpokerstudy.com. If you like the show and you learned something, please consider supporting at patreon.com/smartpokerstudy. And of course, subscribe to the podcast and leave a review, poker people. Later this week in episode number 200, I'm going to hit you with a 3-question Q&A, so please stay tuned. And with all this pre-flop talk, of course, my newest book, Preflop Online Poker, is available on Amazon in all the formats, ebook, paperback, and audiobook, so pick it up there. Until next time, apply the MED idea to the rest of your game and practice the MED action all week long.